would have died for you.
So what am I supposed to do?
He's the guy who would give up anything for love, even his own self-worth. The simp, defined as a lovelorn and overly attentive guy, is someone that no one wants to be.
This could easily be the single most horrific night of my life. I'm a simp.
Yet by taking a closer look at how the simp approaches love, we can unpack some warnings about our own relationships, as well as some advice. Simply put, the simp will do anything for the girl he's romantically interested in, even if it costs him his dignity.
Think about it.
The simp shares certain similarities with the nice guy, who expects romance for, well, being nice.
I just don't want to release.
Well, you're not the only one that gets a say in this. I do too. And I say we're a couple. God damn it.
But the simp is far more submissive. Even if his love goes unrequited, he remains fully dedicated to fulfilling the woman's desires.
You know how you always wanted a Barbie dream house?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I decided to make you your own Jenna dream house.
Historically, the simp has been viewed as slightly pathetic.
All I've ever wanted was to serve you.
As explained by rapper Too Short, who helped popularize simp in the 80s and 90s, it's like the opposite of the pimp. It really degrades the person who you're aiming it at.
Another week with that simp, I'll kill myself.
Still, the simp is a sexist creation. Simp has become a catch-all for any man who shows unabashed support for women, used by people with limited and stereotypical ideas about male-female relationships.
You cannot let her sleep here if she's not having sex with you. It's disempowering.
The simp has become such a recognizable figure because he represents the uncertainty about the line between romantic selflessness and healthy self-respect, something we can all relate to sometimes.
And I realize I'm not half good enough, and I'm not this great man.
Here's our take on how the simp might be setting himself up for failure, and what we can learn from his positive qualities so that we can all be better at love, whether it's returned or not.
She doesn't like you. She's shown no interest. She's way into someone else. Why give up now? This is the right move.
The word simp is wielded as an insult against someone who's seen as humiliating himself for female attention, something he's willing to do because he puts himself so far beneath his love interest.
You're this smart, talented, perfect creature. I'm just sweaty schlub in a bear costume.
Most of the time, the simp puts women on a pedestal because to him they already seem out of reach.
It was Sadie Hawkins, so girl's choice.
What, nobody picked you?
It was girl's choice.
And he attempts to compensate for this by worshipping them, offering tributes that seem romantic in theory, but in execution come off as embarrassing. The simp is a big believer in the grand romantic gesture, the public display of affection that puts the burden on the woman to respond, even when that affection is unwanted.
I heard you let a little friend of mine take off your party dress.
And he might be too busy putting on a show to realize he's coming off a little strong. He's usually willing to do so much for her that it might seem impossible for her to return it, even if she wanted to. His whole approach to romance is about showering his crush with affection, rather than treating her like a person. In fact, the simp may not even need reciprocation or encouragement from his love interest. He knows how he feels about her, and to him, that's all that really matters.
And I'd like to marry her.
Well, does Andy know how you feel about this?
Oh, no confirmation on that just yet.
The simp's understanding of relationships is so misguided, he'll dedicate years of effort and fantasies to a future that was never going to exist, and be crushed when it doesn't pan out.
I gave up billiards. I gave up everything you didn't like. I'm happy I did. It's fine. And I waited and I never complained because I figured you loved me, Joe.
What the simp often doesn't realize is that his skewed view of romance leaves him destined for disappointment. He idolizes women to the point that if he does finally end up in a relationship with someone, it's likely to be unbalanced, and he may accept far less than anyone deserves.
Look, Emma, I know our relationship hasn't been perfect. You won't ride in my car. I can't touch you above the wrist, but I think about you all day long.
On screen, being a hopeless romantic often works out for a lot of other guys, so what makes the simp different? Most obviously, whether a man's elaborate shows of affection render him a simp or a stud depends entirely on how they are received.
If both people are into each other, a big romantic gesture works. But if one person isn't into the other, the same gesture comes off serial killer crazy.
Some of our most beloved male rom-com leads are guilty of certified simp behavior, yet we still see them as heroic or charming because that's how their romantic interest sees them. We can see an illustration of how fine the line is on Friends, where Ross's pining for Rachel initially makes him out to be a pretty big simp.
That's because you're such a sweet, gentle...
But Ross changes his fate.
It's always been you, Rach.
Meanwhile, Gunther is a mirror version of Ross if he'd never managed to break out of the simp zone. He allows his crush on Rachel to exist only in his mind, where it intensifies into over-the-top fantasy.
I was wondering if you'd like to go to a movie with me sometime. As my lover. Too out there.
Gunther could conceivably have had a shot with Rachel if he went for it.
I mean, look, Gunther, I mean, he's nice, he's cute.
Yeah. But he confesses only after such an absurd amount of time that her reaction is something between bewilderment and pity.
I just have to tell you. I love you.
I love you too. Probably not in the same way.
Another example can be found on The Office, where Jim simps for Pam while she's engaged to Roy, keeping his true feelings hidden. But then Jim takes a risk and tells Pam exactly how he feels about her, and is a simp no more.
I'm in love with you.
What?
I'm really sorry if that's weird for you to hear, but I need you to hear it.
At the same time, Toby harbors his own secret crush on Pam, yet rather than being direct about it, he attempts to show her through gestures that are too easily misinterpreted or overlooked.
Hey, where have you been all night? I was looking forward to hanging out with you.
Tragically for Toby, we learn that Pam might have even been receptive if he'd only given himself a chance.
Don't tell him I said this, but I always thought he was kind of cute.
In the simp's defense, we've been conditioned to see painfully unrequited love as intensely romantic. Because the simp romanticizes that kind of desperate longing, he also sees his suffering as a critical part of love, something he has to endure to be worthy of getting it in return.
I was waiting outside in the rain for you, because I thought you would come out and be like, oh, he's all wet, that's so romantic. But you didn't.
But carrying a torch for someone isn't the same as caring for them.
I can't feel that. It's really sweet and everything, but you can't just sit there and put everybody's lives ahead of yours and think that counts as love.
Often it's hardly even about them. The simp indulges in these obsessions as a way of fantasizing about what he wants for himself, namely to be loved and appreciated.
So funny, aren't they?
You know, I do stand-up comedy.
And he sets himself up for disappointment by ignoring not only his love interest's feelings, but her flaws, and devoting himself to an idea of love that's really about the longing to change his own life.
He talked a lot about the past, as if he wanted to recover something, some vision of himself that he had put into loving Daisy.
Recognizing that she's a person and not an ideal is the only shot the simp has at ever getting closer to her and his own happiness.
She's not just a fantasy. She's got, like, flaws. She's real.
The The simp has a pretty complicated dynamic with women, but arguably he's defined by his relationship to other men. The resurgence of simp as an insult can be attributed to guys who use it to criticize each other over doing too much for women who aren't offering sex in return.
I'm her friend.
You're a boyfriend.
No, I'm not her boyfriend.
You're a boyfriend without the rewards.
How about this? Why don't you just shut up?
Hey, Nick, you ready?
Yeah.
And because it's used as a way of describing a man who's been presumably emasculated by his devotion, the simp has come to be seen as a largely feminine figure. In fact, we could describe a lot of female characters as simps based solely on their behaviors, but our gender roles explain why we don't. Acting like a simp is in many ways just how we expect a woman to act, as seen in tropes like the obsessive ex-girlfriend.
I ran into Josh, he made me feel warm inside, like glitter was exploding inside me, then I moved here.
Society just tends to perceive women as naturally relationship-obsessed and quote-unquote crazy.
Luckily, when you're the guy, you can just tell people she's crazy. Hey, Tom, I heard you and Lucy broke up. Yeah, man. Turns out she's crazy.
But we're also less likely to find them disturbing. The Archie Comics character Betty has been simping for Archie for decades, but rather than calling her intense or weird, she's regarded as the quintessential girl next door.
You are so perfect.
We also tend to characterize the act of putting in tons of effort for very little in return as something distinctly feminine. It's just accepted that a woman can and will go to great, even obsessive lengths to look after her love interest.
He's all alone, and he needs so much help. Did you enroll in all of his classes, or were you worried that might freak him out?
Because we see being passive and accommodating as female traits, the male simp is essentially accused of failing as a man.
Wanna say, love your hair. Here I go, mumbling.
In recent years, the word has been seized upon by the so-called manosphere, men's rights activists, and other male agitators online, who use it to deride men as weak for overtly trying to curry a woman's favor, or even just offering her a compliment. Calling someone a simp may not even be about his love life. Sometimes it's that he just seems like one of the girls.
It's a man's job, Erin. I'm a man.
That's debatable.
Well, I'm more of a man than Orla.
I do not accept that.
The simp is well aware that manliness is one ideal where he doesn't really measure up, and this can also play into his self-narrative about his own romantic failures.
I suppose I like my gents more on the manly side. Was that a little swan you made?
No, it was a B-52.
It explains why he leans into the misguided idea that to be worthy of a woman, he has to go the extra mile, or 10. But this tendency to disregard the simp as a lesser man causes us to overlook some of the qualities that are more redeeming about him, particularly when compared to the kind of toxic men that are calling him out. For all his unhealthy and self-defeating qualities, there are some positive aspects to the simp. And if he can learn to set some personal boundaries, even his more suffocating gestures can become something that's oddly sweet.
Josh said you like goldfish.
The crackers, Danny. The cheese things that you have at a party.
Abandoning his dignity is one of the simp's characteristic weaknesses, but if he doesn't completely lose his self-esteem in the process, that kind of shamelessness can also be a strength. After all, love makes a fool of us all sometimes, and a partner who's not too proud to show that can be a great thing to have.
I'm sitting in my underwear, holding a plastic guitar. There's a very good chance I'm making a complete fool of myself, isn't there?
The well-adjusted simp isn't too stubborn to look silly or vulnerable, and he's just persistent enough to go after a relationship he really believes in without being afraid of rejection. The simp rejects an egotistical insistence that he always knows best, while embracing a gentler determination that if the object is receptive can allow him to break through a tough outer shell.
Or say something.
I'm not good at saying something.
Then come here.
When done right, even the simp traits that have been derided as pathetic can become positives. Part of what makes the word simp so derogatory is the implication that he's been whipped.
What the Jared? I said door to door.
But because of the gender expectations that say men should always pull rank over their female partners, there's also a bias to consider whenever we see a woman taking charge, one that may make her seem overly demanding or him overly yielding.
Gigi just keeps Jared around for when she needs a liver.
The healthy simp is happy to do whatever works for his partner, not necessarily what makes him look powerful to other people.
This whole thing just makes me queasy. I love how independent my wife is.
He's more open to real equality, which makes his relationships stronger in the long run. Ben Wyatt on Parks and Recreation would likely be branded a simp online. He dotes on Leslie, and he sacrifices plenty of his own desires to help her achieve her dreams, including his time, his job, and at one point, even their romance.
Why do we have to break up?
Well, Leslie, everything you've accomplished, you have earned and you have worked for.
But Ben is an enlightened simp. He knows that he and Leslie are equal members of a team, which means supporting each other and making compromises when necessary. To truly evolve, the simp must face some hard truths about himself.
The pity thing? Not good. If you want crappy things to stop happening to you, then stop accepting crap and demand something more.
In the early episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Boyle displays classically unhealthy simp behavior in his obsession with Rosa.
What movie did you get us tickets to?
Oh, well, just to be safe, I bought tickets to all of them.
But once Boyle recognizes, finally, that Rosa's feelings about him matter just as much as his feelings about her,
I'm not into you that way, and I have a boyfriend.
He's able to move past it. As the simp gets a better sense of himself, a journey that often begins with him accepting rejection, he's free to find an identity that's not solely defined by his fixation on a love interest, and it ultimately leads him down a much happier path. Sometimes the simp's path to better self-esteem starts with simply standing up for himself. His love interest doesn't owe him affection, but she does owe him enough respect not to string him along on purpose.
I can't let you fluff me. I can't let you work in emotional porn. You have too much to offer.
In 10 Things I Hate About You, Cameron falls for Bianca at first sight, and while it's clear that his motivations are somewhat shallow,
put her in your spank bank, move on.
No.
Move on.
No, you're wrong about her. I mean, you know, not about the spanking part, but the rest. You're wrong.
he also works hard to help Bianca get her father's permission to date him. He has no idea that Bianca is already planning to date someone else, and she can't even remember his name.
What's your name again?
Cameron.
Oh, wait a minute. Curtis.
Cameron.
To end the cycle of simping, Cameron has to put his foot down and confront Bianca about the way she's been using him, letting her finally see him for who he is.
Just because you're beautiful, that doesn't mean that you can treat people like they don't matter.
Contrary to the way he's been derided, the simp isn't a pushover just because he's helpful or attentive toward women. When his more sycophantic traits are balanced out by a healthy self-image, the simp can be a role model for how to be a kinder, more considerate, more affectionate person, one who has a little to teach us all about how to dedicate ourselves to others.
You want to know a secret?
Yeah.
You're the sweetest guy I've ever known.
At his lowest, the simp is an awkward, lonely cocktail of wasted love, negative self-talk, and toxic pop culture-derived myths about what romance should look like.
What on earth would make you think I would like that?
Movies?
Oh God, Tom.
It's all too easy for the simp to fall into those old nice guy traps, thinking that he's done enough to deserve love in exchange for displays of adoration.
Gotten all these things for her, now she just wants to run away.
But the thing is, he already deserves love, as do most people. The simp works hard to prove it, but he simply has to believe it. And when it's just not meant to be with one person, he has to learn to let go of it.
The healthy thing for you to do is move on.
So, we both decided the healthy thing for me to do is to just move on.
The simp teaches us some useful lessons about not being too proud to show our love, and the importance of being willing to put our partner's needs first for the good of our relationships. But the most essential thing that the simp still has to learn is something we all need to be reminded of. If we keep putting love out into the world, it'll come back to us eventually, just maybe not the way we planned.
I've always loved you. But the love I feel for Amy, it's different. I think it was meant this way.
This is The Take. What do you want our take on next?